Friends, how are you doing? It is May 4th. May the 4th be with us today, tomorrow, all this week. We've got a big week in the market coming. Big week in this market this week. I'm just excited. I can't even form sentences. So I thought it'd be fun just to, go over essentially two situations here that There's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of conversation around SoundHound, around BigBear. Obviously, BigBear, people hate it, love it, and they don't know whether to trust it. I get it 100%. But just a real quick little video talking about that, kind of see where we're all at mentally with these two stocks. It's very much, see how everybody feels here. Tomorrow we've got Palantir producing quarterlies after closing, and I think they're probably going to be banging, and we're going to see how crazy they'll get here. But okay, let's dig into let's go right into BigBear here first off. So BigBear, I don't want to go over everything how I feel about BigBear, but I will bring the double-edged sword to the conversation here and say what I've always said is that I still think BigBear, even with all these great deals and partnerships that it's gotten here the last 5-6 months since the end of last year, it's positive, it's good, and that's why BigBear has continued to capture people's interest here, and we essentially every 45 to 50 days here we're getting some sort of deal partnership, and we just received another one here not too long ago. So it leaves the thought that if we can keep this going where BigBear keeps getting these big, nice, at least defense deals, this is going to start adding up here pretty soon later in the year. And this is why a lot of people, I think, are trying to be as patient as they can with BigBear here. But two, there's that thing that BigBear is fighting this lawsuit situation that I think a lot of us are just ready to get it wrapped up. And it's being taken way out of proportion at this point. These law firms are just begging people to call them so they can try to go after BigBear at this point, and it has nothing to do with their quarterlies that are coming out this year, revenue, anything. It has nothing to do with that. So BigBear has found these deals here that there's more of them than I put up here, but these are kind of the ones that most people will probably remember at this point. These are ones that are hopefully compounding into this year with what they've already had, and hopefully too we can see more deals with BigBear here. Now BigBear just came out with this quarterly here, their Q1, and as expected, I didn't think they would pass the expectation of it, and they didn't, but they came really close. Now with that too, the fact that they came close but didn't beat it, it was a good and bad situation. We knew more than likely they were not going to beat this quarterly, but they came really close, which was positive in a weird sense because BigBear usually doesn't even come close to beating their expectation of a quarterly. So that was pretty positive, and it was a better quarterly than Q1 of 2024. So far it is showing that, okay, this is going to be a better year, we think, here with BigBear, especially with these big deals that they've been getting here with these defense contracts. So on top of that, you've got BigBear with the new CEO, Kevin. You've got BigBear getting these government contracts. You've got BigBear very much still finding a interest with investors. And I do think BigBear is in this situation where it's just going to be a very volatile stock, 100%. It's going to be up and down. It's going to be under $3 one day. It's going to be over $3 one day, or a week in that sense. It's going to be, there's going to be hard waters, and it's literally, you're walking through the lake of rot right now with BigBear trying to find a solid place for it to stand up on, a safe place, and that is the situation that we're going through right now with BigBear, because even with these good deals that it's acquired, there still hasn't been like a huge deal just to transform the whole logistics and finances of the company. Now obviously if BigBear were to come out this week and say, hey, we just got a government defense contract for $500 million within 1 year's time. Okay, well that would freaking change everything. The everything would change. Everything would change overnight with BigBear. BigBear would undoubtedly bleed up, push up to probably $10, $8 again real fast. It would solve all of its financial issues with debt, with everything that's been going on here, have a lot more cash on hand, and everything would change automatically, and it would be a feeding frenzy. Now, that's that's the hope. That's the fairy tale that we want here. Are we going to get that? I don't know. We've seen things like that happen in the market. We've seen things like that happen with stocks, undoubtedly. But but more than likely, I think all we can go off of right now is what we're seeing. It's just these nice little small / middle / nice big chunky defense contracts. We had the nice one back there at the end of 2024 for the 165.15 million over 5 years. So obviously broken up quite a bit there, but it's still a decent amount of money coming in here for Big Bear. So friends, I think this is just going to be the situation until Big Bear can lock in better quarterlies. Big Bear can lock in some huge deal that we can see and they can prove and show to investors that, like, hey, this is changing everything. Big Bear's going to struggle here to keep this $3 more than likely, and I hope I'm wrong about that. I want Big Bear to soar to $3.80, $4, but I think the longer Big Bear goes on with this bad news surrounding the lawsuit situation, and we're in the in between stage of the travel of getting to the next deal, Big Bear is going to keep falling down slowly, and it's going to lose trust. It's going to lose enthusiasm. So I want to see them get more deals. The main thing a company needs, it needs money, and that's what Big Bear needs right now. It needs money. And like I said, keeping it short and sweet here, I just going over SoundHound here. SoundHound will be having their quarterlies on May 8th here. So with that being said, these are quarterlies that I think a lot of us are very interested with SoundHound right now, because this May 8th Q1 that's coming out here, I am curious to see if they're going to be in this new quarterly price zone where their last quarterlies were this $34 million zone. So are they going to keep this nice inflow of money coming here? And they could here, because they received so many deals here in 2024, and those deals are still going to be coming in here, slivers of, the deal cut up throughout the years here. I'm sure they've achieved more deals that we don't even know about. So we could see just like the last quarterly, somewhere in the $30 million range. But if not, even higher, who knows? But I still think even if they come out with like a 29 point something million quarterly, it's still going to be really good. That's more money than this company has ever produced in that small amount of time here. So it's probably more than likely going to keep SoundHound in this $7 to $9 range here on a good day. And I think regardless, SoundHound is going to have an amazing year here in 2025. And what's interesting right here is when you look at the quarterlies compared to Big Bear and SoundHound here, is that Big Bear has been producing better money. They just haven't been hitting quarterlies. It's honestly, Big Bear has been a poorly ran company here the past handful of years. That's why the attention is on it now, because of all these deals that it's gotten, and they have a new CEO who has a defense background and all this, Trump, all that kind of stuff. But SoundHound has just really started to come into some pretty massive deals, a real want and need for what they do, bread and butter wise, for their technology, and then they're just these last two quarterlies. 2024 was a great year for them, undoubtedly. Every quarterly was like dun, 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 and then we got to the last two, and it was just they were like, okay, these are massive quarterlies. But we kind of saw those coming too, because I remember even yapping my gums early in 2024 about like, hey, I look at this company SoundHound. The Q1 was better, Q2 a lot better. Then we were still getting big deals. Then Q3 came out, and it was like, And then we were still getting deals at Q3, and then when we saw Q4, it was like, holy friggin' smokes! I mean, it was just, $34.5 million for SoundHound at that time. Q4, the last quarterly, that was huge. So if they can produce this new price range, somewhere in between like the Q3 and Q4 of last year, anywhere from 20 million to even almost 30 million or over 30 million. That's really good. That's a huge amount of money that they are now taking in for a company that just a year, 2 years ago, was making under 10 million to 12 million per quarterly and still not beating expectations and having some debt issues and kind of and just kind of like interest by investors. But I dare say SoundHound is in a lot different range right now where people are highly paying attention to it. So if you're not paying attention to SoundHound, really, I'm not telling you to dump your finances in it, but I'm telling you to continue to watch what's going on with this company. Obviously it's still a very young and, it's not really it hasn't matured into any big numbers, but, or even, price action for quarterlies where it's like a guaranteed situation. With quarterlies here, we're still watching kind of what's it's producing here, but I think we're going to continue to see some decent price range come out here with SoundHound, and undoubtedly this could be the biggest year they've ever had financially. So just don't take your eyes off SoundHound. Keep watching it here. We're about to have quarterlies, and I think it's gonna be very interesting. Friends, listen, I don't want to bother you anymore. Enjoy your night, enjoy your family, friends, kids, wherever you're at, and be excited. Maybe most of you are watching Star Wars right now. I get it. Friends, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.